students. I wish I could be there with you today, but unfortunately, I can't make it back from the moon that quickly. So I still wanted to read to you today. Today we are doing Arthur C. Clarke's The Secret, which is a science fiction short story. And so we're going to read together the guided reading on the iPad, and I really hope that you enjoy it. So please have this video open in YouTube and we'll split screen today. And then on the other side, I will have you open up the guided reading. You can export this to iBooks if you want to, or you can work with it in Canvas. But we are annotating the text and filling in the guided reading questions. Today we'll do half, and then tomorrow we'll do the second half of the guided reading for the short story. All right, let's do it. The Secret by Arthur C. Clarke. This is an excerpt and guided reading. Let's take a look at the preview. Connecting to the literature. In The Secret, a reporter struggles over whether or not to publish a fascinating but upsetting discovery. Connect to the story by thinking about a time when you discovered something important but knew that sharing it would have a potentially negative impact on others. Background. The Secret by Arthur C. Clarke takes place in a colony on the moon. For years, astronauts have conducted experiments to learn about what it would be like to live in space. For example, they evaluate how the human body adapts to extreme changes in atmosphere and gravity. Information collected in space is then analyzed on Earth. The results help scientists develop new strategies for survival in space. Science fiction. Science fiction combines elements of fiction and fantasy with scientific fact. Science fiction writers balance realistic details with fantasy details. In the following example, fantasy details are italicized. This is an excerpt from the text we'll be reading. So, here he was doing the lunar circuit and beaming back 2,000 words of copy a day. In the example, the reporter's 2,000 words a day is a detail that gives a sense of realism in a world where a reporter does a lunar circuit and beams assignments into the office. Think of other examples of TV shows, movies, or books that use a mixture of real elements and imaginary elements. So, a lunar circuit, just so you know, because I'm on a lunar circuit right now. A lunar circuit is whenever you are making rounds between living on Earth and then living on the moon, and then living on Earth and then living back on the moon. So here we're going to have a reporter who comes up here, he does some investigation, he sees what's going on the moon, and then he beams back words down to Earth, and then they publish them. So that is definitely a mixture of real things, because reporters do go into the field and they do discover what's going on and write on it. But it also combines science fiction because we don't beam words back. We just email them. Okay. Page 2, connecting literary elements. The setting of a story is the time and place of the action. In science fiction, the setting is often the future, and a place other than Earth, such as another planet or an imaginary universe. This story takes place on the moon, a good indication that it happens in the future. Use these focus questions to guide you as you read. How does the setting affect the meaning of the story? What details of the setting are only possible at a time in the future? Using word origins. You will encounter many words related to science in a science fiction story. Many science words come from Latin and Greek. Use the origins of words to help you see the relationships between words and remember their meanings. Look at the chart on this page, for example, of the origins of some groups of words. As you read, notice the word or words in the story that fit into each of these groups. So we have some science words on the left, and their origin is on the right. So Greek and Latin roots are small units of letters working together that have meaning in themselves. And many languages have taken these roots and embedded them into their own words so that if we don't know a word, we can go in and we can look at the different roots in it and we know the meaning attached to those roots, and then we can deduce the meaning of the word. So here, one of the Greek roots that we're going to see often used in words in science fiction writing is micro. That's on the right, on the top of our chart. Micro is from the Greek mikro, meaning small. So if you look at some words that have origins with micro, on the left, science words, microscope, microchip, microbiology, there are many more. So think of some words that you know that have micro in them. The next one from Latin is trans, and when we see trans in a word, that means from the Latin root trans, over, across, beyond, or through. So some words on the left that go along with this root that are science-based words that we'll see in science fiction: transparent, which is when you can see through something; translucent, that would be a synonym there; transform. And then one more origin that we're going to look at here is going to be tech, from the Greek tekton, meaning to build. So again, looking at some words that use this root of tech in our science fiction study, we're seeing technical, technician, and technique. All right, vocabulary development. So here are our vocabulary words for our science fiction short story. And you know these because you did an activity with this for your web quest on the science fiction genre. So we have receding. If something is receding, it is moving back and fading. We have radial, which is branching out in all directions. We have well qualified and capable, for competent. Heedless is unmindfully careless. Microbes are going to be extremely small organisms. Implications are possible conclusions or outcomes. We have hemisphere, which is half of a dome. And then we have looming, which is ominous and awe-inspiring. This usually has a negative connotation. If something is looming, it's off in the background and it has a negative effect on something. You're worried about it. So those are our vocabulary words. All right, so we are going to now start the secret, and we're going to start reading our short story here, and this is really fun science fiction, and we're going to have like a moral dilemma in this at the end, where we're going to think like, if you were in this character's shoes, what would you do? What's the right thing to do here? And oftentimes with science fiction and looking at technology and the impact of technology, there are a lot of moral questions of, just because we can do something, should we do that thing? So that's something that we're going to explore with this particular short story. Okay, here we go. The Secret by Arthur C. Clarke. Henry Cooper had been on the moon for almost 2 weeks before he discovered that something was wrong. At first, it was only an ill-defined suspicion, the sort of hunch that a hard-headed science reporter would not take too seriously. He had come here, after all, at the United Nations Space Administration's own request. UNSA had always been hot on public relations, especially just before budget time, when an overcrowded world was screaming for more roads and schools and sea farms and complaining about the billions being poured into space. So here he was, doing the lunar circuit for the second time and beaming back 2,000 words of copy a day. Although the novelty had worn off, there still remained the wonder and mystery of a world as big as Africa, thoroughly mapped yet almost completely unexplored. A stone's throw away from the pressure domes, the labs, the spaceports, was a yawning emptiness that would challenge humankind for centuries to come. Some parts of the moon were almost too familiar, of course. Who had not seen the dusty scar on the Mare Imbrium with its gleaming metal pylon and the plaque that announced in 3 official languages of Earth, on this spot at 2001 UT, 13 September 1959, the first man-made object reached another world. Cooper had visited the grave of Lunik II, and the more famous tomb of the men who had come after it. Before these things belonged to the past, already, like Columbus and the Wright brothers, they were receding into history. What concerned him now was the future. Okay, let's take a look at our tasks for page 1. So the first one is crafting setting. Which details of the first 3 paragraphs build setting? Highlight those details green. So take a minute and think to yourself, what are some sections here that build setting? And this is descriptive language that's talking about where and when, details where and when the action is occurring. So pause me, go in, get your highlighter, we're doing green, and we're going in and we're highlighting sections of the text that are details that go along with setting. Next up, we have figurative language. Which figurative language technique references a person of historical significance? If you need help with this one, we can go to our Quizlet for figurative language. You guys have a link to that in supportive resources. And I'll give you a clue. It starts with an A. Shown a personal interest in his tour. Transportation, accommodation, and an official guide were all arranged. He could go anywhere he liked, ask any question he pleased. UNSA trusted him, for his stories had always been accurate, his attitudes friendly. Yet the tour had gone sour. He did not know why, but he was going to find out. He reached for the phone and said, "Operator, please get me the police department. I want to speak to the Inspector General." Presumably, Chandra Coomaraswamy possessed a uniform, but Cooper had never seen him wearing it. They met, as arranged, at the entrance to the little park that was Plato City's chief pride and joy. At this time, in the morning of the artificial 24-hour day, it was almost deserted, and they could talk without interruption. As they walked along the narrow gravel paths, they chatted about old times, the friends they had known at college together, the latest developments in interplanetary politics. They had reached the middle of the park, under the exact center of the great blue-painted dome, when Cooper came to the point. "You know everything that's happening on the moon, Chandra," he said, "and you know that I'm here to do a series for UNSA. I hope to make a book out of it when I get back to Earth. So why should people be trying to hide things from me?" It was impossible to hurry Chandra. He always took his time to answer difficult questions, and his few words escaped with difficulty around the stem of his hand-carved Bavarian pipe. "What people?" he asked at length. "You've really no idea?" The Inspector General shook his head. "Not the faintest," he answered, and Cooper knew that he was telling the truth. Chandra might be silent, but he would not lie. I was afraid you'd say that. Well, if you don't know any more than I do, here's the only clue I have, and it frightens me. Medical research is trying to keep me at arm's length. Replied Chandra, taking his pipe from his mouth and looking at it thoughtfully. Is that all you have to say? Alright, so we have our reporter, Cooper, and he is here on the moon and he's reporting back to Earth of what's happening. And this is a colony that they've set up. There's just a few people here. And he is feeling like there's something suspicious going on, and people usually are super excited to see Cooper, and they're like, oh, you're here to report back to Earth, this is great, here's some cool things we're doing. And now he's starting to have this feeling like people are dodging him and avoiding him, and when he gets close to medical research, they're getting super distant and weird with him. So he's thinking there's something wrong. So Cooper is going to Chandra Kumaraswamy, who is a detective cop on the moon, and he's asking him, hey, what do you know about this deal with the medical research? Why are they being strange with me? Why don't they want me to report what's happening over here? Why are they trying to hide something from me? Okay, so let's take a look at our tasks for page 2. The first one is sensory language. So sensory details are details that appeal to our 5 senses. How things look, smell, sound, taste, and feel. Highlight sensory details on this page, green. Okay, so going in and looking for things that describe a smell, a sound, how they look, how they taste, how they feel. Highlighting all of that sensory language, green. So pause me, go over to your assignment, and let's do that now. And we're also going to do verb moods. Excuse me. Verb moods. Verb moods. So I highlighted a piece here for you. Hope to make a book out of it when I get back to Earth. So verb moods are, think of them as buckets. They are categories, buckets that a sentence can be sorted into. So every sentence in the English language ever created is going to fit into the indicative verb mood, which is a statement. It could be fact or opinion based. We have the imperative verb mood, and that is going to be a command or a request. We have the interrogative verb mood, which is expressing a question. We have conditional verb mood, which is something could or might happen, but it depends on something else occurring first. And then we have the subjunctive verb mood, which is a wish, a desire, an imaginary situation, or a hypothetical situation. So here for verb moods, number 4, think to yourself, what verb mood is this sentence representing? And we're going to put that there for number 4. Okay, so we are now halfway through our science fiction short story. We went in and we highlighted some things that build setting, and we went in and we identified some figurative language, which is a reference, in this case for number 2, to a person, place, thing, event of significance. It could be historical significance, which that's what this is here. It could be political significance, cultural significance, literary significance. So we have that. We also went in and we looked at sensory detail today, how things smell, how they look, how they taste, how they feel, how they sound, and we highlighted those and identified annotating those. And we also did some work with verb moods, and verb moods are categories of sentences based on feeling and emotion that's expressed. So at this point, the first 4 pages are now done. The first 2 were kind of an introduction, but the first 2 pages of the actual short story should now be annotated. So we're going to pause here for today. What is happening in medical research, and why is Cooper not being allowed in to investigate and report back to Earth? That is the real question. What is happening in medical research? Okay, stop by tomorrow and we will read the rest of our science fiction short story, and we will find out what's going on in medical research. Have some faith in Chandra Kumaraswamy, our Detective Inspector General. All right, see you guys later. Bye.